The Chargers running back room is very competitive right now, but we don't know exactly how it is going to look yet. We do know that this will be a running back rotation with several guys getting multiple touches per game, but the competitions for running back 1 through 4 is going to be one to watch in training camp, and with the emphasis on the running game, it might actually be one of the most important ones to watch. Let me give you guys the full breakdown on this running back room. Now, the first player to sign with the Chargers in free agency was Gus Edwards. He is the big, bruising running back from the Baltimore Ravens. Now, just the fact that he was the first player added to the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz, this new era, that signals what they want to be on offense. They're going to be a tough and physical running team. We know that, but also with a running back by committee approach. Gus Edwards, he signed for 2 years and only $6.5 million total, which honestly, that is an awesome bargain considering what these other running backs were getting in free agency this year. And Gus Edwards' nickname is Gus the Bus, and it is for a reason. He is a master of short yard situations and consistently falls forward and runs through contact between the tackles. The Ravens also had several different running backs getting touches, and they all had specific roles in that offense. Gus's role was the red zone running back and the guy that you put out there when you need only just a few yards on like a 3rd down or on 4th down, when you just want to run the ball down the defense's throat and just extend drives. And he was so good in that area that he had a 95.5% success rate in those situations. And the next closest to him since he entered the NFL is Ezekiel Elliott at 78.3%. That is a huge drop off. Not a lot of people talk about how extremely efficient Gus Edwards was in those situations. I mean, we all talk about how good he is in those short yardage situations, but this is he is truly next level. He has separated himself as the best player in that regard. So he is truly the best player in the NFL in that category, and you can argue that those are some of the most important situations to have success in football. I mean, just think about how often in the Brandon Staley era, I know I don't want to think back about that, but listen, there were several times that we would not be able to convert in a short yardage situation on like a 3rd down or a 4th down. And think about how drastically that shifted momentum, and then it ultimately led to a lot of losses. Gus Edwards, he also averages almost 5 yards per carry throughout his entire career, which it's even more impressive when you take into account that he is often only asked to pick up about like 3 yards in those short yardage situations. And in those short yardage situations, listen, man, defenses are going to be stacking the box, especially when they see Gus the Bus out there in the backfield, because they know what's coming. And he is still so efficient in that area with that success rate, and then also averaging more yards than he actually needs to be getting. It's just extremely efficient, and he is so underrated in the NFL, and he is going to be reunited with the second running back that was added from Baltimore in free agency this season, J.K. Dobbins. Now, a lot of people are excited about J.K. Dobbins because this dude is a shifty, change of pace running back who can just make one cut and be off to the freaking races. He is also smaller than Gus Edwards, so he has that ability to squirm and fit his way into holes between the tackles that Gus the Bus would just try to like bulldoze right through. He is strong and always keeps his legs churning to try and get as much yardage as he can, which you can see from his stats here, because this is another running back who is highly efficient. He averaged 5.8 yards per carry over his 4-year career. And I know that, look, there's only 3 years listed right here when I show you these stats, and that is because he has missed so much time due to injury. He missed his entire sophomore season in the NFL. He has only played 24 games over 4 years, but when he is on the field, he is a true difference maker. He has next level lateral agility, 47 missed tackles forced, 41 explosive runs throughout his career on only 234 attempts. Now, if you do the math here, that means that he is due for an explosive run on at least 1 out of every 6 handoffs that you give him. I mean, if we want to be precise here, it's 1 out of every 5.7. And if you're still not convinced about J.K. Dobbins, nobody averaged more yards per carry since 2020 than J.K. Dobbins. And when he is healthy, he is genuinely, this is not an exaggeration, but one of the very best running backs in the NFL. The problem is, he's just never really healthy. And he reminds me a lot of Bob Sanders in that aspect, because Bob Sanders, he was one of the best safeties in the NFL. He would have been a Hall of Fame player if he could stay healthy, but he never could. And he was even nicknamed Mr. Glass because of it. He was a former Charger too. And then another former Charger, Jason Verrett, he had that same kind of issue. J.K. Dobbins, he's going to be signed. Well, he is signed to a 1-year, very low money contract. So this is an extremely low risk with an extremely high reward kind of guy. If he can stay healthy, we would be in a great situation. And this is the biggest question mark for the Chargers at running back. If J.K. Dobbins can't stay healthy, and if he cannot stay healthy, it is going to change the look of this running back room. It just all depends on his health. But the man that was able to get the most out of these running backs is Greg Roman, our offensive coordinator. Greg Roman was with the Ravens for both J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards' best years in the NFL. And last year, even though the Ravens were the best rushing team in the NFL, they averaged less yards per carry and had less total yards rushing than the year prior when Greg Roman was there. And the Ravens' only season with Greg Roman where they were not better than they were last season without him was in 2021. And that is the year where Tyler Huntley started at quarterback for 7 games, but they only had 182 yards less rushing that year than they did this past season. And to me, that just shows how impactful Greg Roman was to their rushing success, because Lamar Jackson, he is a huge threat in that Ravens offense, specifically a threat to run the ball. And that causes a lot of problems for defenses. When you take away the threat of Lamar Jackson, it creates issues as a play caller because you designed your playbook around Lamar. So insert Tyler Huntley, who's nowhere near as good as Lamar Jackson. And then you also take into account that the Ravens were without Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and had tons of injuries that year. Greg Roman was still able to be competitive in spite of all of those issues, and they finished as the 3rd best rushing offense that year. And so now I want you to imagine Greg Roman with a quarterback like Justin Herbert, who is a much better thrower than Lamar is, and also has a little bit of rushing threat to his game. I'm not saying you want him to be rushing the ball like Lamar was, but Justin's ability to throw the ball anywhere on the football field is going to open up the run game more than Lamar's ability to run that QB option or RPO, in my opinion, because the defense, they're going to have to take into account every inch of the field, and they're not going to be able to load the box as much as they could against Lamar Jackson. But if you want to load up in fantasy, you can click my link in the description and create an Underdog account using my code McLane. That is MACLANE. You will get a special pick'em and up to $250 in bonus cash on your first time deposit. This helps me out so much. But now we need to talk about Kimani Vidal, because this guy is absurd. And I think that he might be the best running back in the Chargers backfield right now. He has been insanely productive with 4,000 yards and 5.1 yards per carry over 4 years at Troy, and also over 1,000 yards after contact and 94 missed tackles forced just this past season. Listen, he had a full 1,000 yards after being hit. Very few running backs hit 1,000 yards throughout an entire season, let alone after being hit by a defender. He also has the ability to pass protect and catch the ball out of the backfield, so this is a true 3-down running back that you can call upon in any situation, outside of maybe those short yardage situations, but you would never really have him in there over Gus Edwards. He was the 2nd highest graded running back by PFF in run grade and offensive grade. He had 47 explosive runs last year. Kimani Vidal has no second gear, which is a good thing. He goes from his first gear to immediately speeding in a residential area, which puts defenders in a bad position because they aren't expecting that kind of build-up speed from him, so it creates bad angles towards the football. I think he is literally a diamond in the rough, and I would not be surprised to see him have an immediate positive impact on this team and maybe, I don't know, even go for 1,000 yards this year, even though I know it's going to be a running back by committee approach. But again, the health of J.K. Dobbins, if he's not healthy, Kimani Vidal is going to be getting more touches. I could genuinely see him getting 1,000 yards this season. But also we have to talk about Isaiah Spiller, who has kind of been like on the outside looking in throughout this whole process. Everyone seems to be forgetting about him because of these 3 new running back additions and the fact that all 3 of those guys, they're great additions in their own ways. But Isaiah Spiller also felt like he was in the doghouse with the previous regime. So we'll see if he'll be able to force his way onto the field through training camp. And the easiest path for him is honestly if guys get injured. I mean, both J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards have injury history, so it's a possibility. But Isaiah Spiller also needs to be able to contribute on special teams because it feels as though he's on the bubble right now. And the same kind of goes for Elijah Dotson. Elijah Dotson looked great last preseason, but he also didn't get many opportunities. And both of these running backs are on the bubble right now and might be fighting for that same roster spot. So that is the battle to watch out for in training camp. And we also need to keep in mind that Ben Mason is a fullback and he is going to be taking up a roster spot on this final 53-man roster most likely. And that might force the Chargers to only keep 3 true running backs and then have a fullback as their 4th guy in that room. But they also could just have 4 running backs and then Ben Mason be the 5th guy. So really, a lot of how this running back room is going to look is going to depend on the health of J.K. Dobbins. If he can stay healthy, this running back room is going to be better off, but it might force Isaiah Spiller and Elijah Dotson on the practice squad. But if he does get injured, one of those guys is probably going to be called upon. It might be Elijah Dotson because his game is more similar to J.K. Dobbins than Isaiah Spiller's is. But we're going to have to wait to see what happens in training camp. But I am also very interested in this wide receiver room because, well, I explain it really well in this video.